You have questions?
What is slashing?
We have answers.
Slashing is like that, you know?
Mm-hmm. And there's a penalty for that?
Yeah. You do that, you go to the box, 2 minutes by yourself, and you feel shame, and then you get free.
This is CBJ in 30.
Anything you folks want to know about the fascinating world of pro hockey, here we go.
Tweet your questions by using the hashtag CBJIN30.
We'd like to remind you folks, keep your questions within the boundaries of good taste.
Here's your host, Bob McGilligan.
And welcome to another edition of CBJ in 30 here on this fourth day of March 2015. Blue Jackets coming off a loss last night at Nationwide Arena. They fell to the... Who they get beaten by last night? Who was it last night? Oh my goodness. I was kind of kidding there. And now I am drawing a blank. See? That's what happens when you start to play all these games in a short period of time. No. I jest... Don't I? I think so. The Washington Capitals were in town last night. Blue Jackets lose to them 5-3. Close game, once again, for the Blue Jackets. They were in the game. They were down by 2 goals, 2-0. Then they were down 3-1. Made it a 3-2 game. Went down 4-2. Made it 4-3. And then ultimately lost with an empty net goal. 5-3 was the final score in the game last night. But the Blue Jackets were pushing. They had opportunities. They were really peppering the Washington Capitals net late in the game with a power play and the goaltender pulled, but alas, it was not enough. They just couldn't get the job done last night. And it was the same old story is what it was last night with the Blue Jackets falling behind 2-0. And this has been something that's continually been going on against teams where they're getting down. To get down by 1 is one thing, but when you get down by 2, it just makes it so much harder. And they get down by 2, and then they score a goal and make it 2-1, and then you're feeling good, and then right away, boom, another goal the other way makes it 3-1. So those are the two things. If there are two things that, if you said to me, what are the biggest problems that need solved right now? The first one is getting an early lead and not getting down by 2 goals in the first period. That's first and foremost. But number 2, and it's a close number 2. When you score a goal, don't let the opposition go right back down and score a goal in the next 30 to 90 seconds. Because that's the way it seems that it's been happening lately here. So this is, it's just not acceptable. It's really not. Let's just throw it on the table. It's not acceptable. Either one of those situations are not acceptable. But they're happening. And they're happening over and over, and they have a lot of people scratching their heads. And a lot of people includes the players that are playing the game, as you'll find out here. A couple of interviews from last night's postgame, starting with Scott Hartnell. Here's what he had to say after the 5-3 loss to Washington.
It seemed like this game could have gotten out of hand early. They missed a chance to go 3-0. You guys got it back. Did Bowles fight in his head and that stuff, did that sort of get you guys engaged emotionally?
Yeah, that's what we talked about before the game, is to have some emotion, have some energy, and a big hit like that and follow it up with a fight against a big boy like that and do really well. Everyone was fired up, got the crowd into it, and it seemed like we played with an extra step after that. So Bowler, he plays some of the hardest minutes in the league, the role that he plays, and have a lot of respect for him and what he does. And it's not easy doing that every night, getting ready to, if there is something that goes wrong, he's the guy that we call upon. So a lot of respect for the guy.
Talk about that emotion, where the season's at for you guys. How important is that the rest of the way to have that element to your game?
We're trying to win games. We're trying to, guys are playing for spots. Guys are playing for ice time. You're playing, for yourselves. But ultimately, you want to be the laughingstock of the league. And with an effort like tonight, we're going to be battling for points in games, and we need more of that. And it's been a long stretch of games for us, and regroup here these 2 games, and then we got back-to-back right at it.
So there's Scott Hartnell talking about last night's loss to the Florida Panthers and being very candid about it, quite frankly, and the things that he has to say. So, it's frustrating. You can see the frustration. It wasn't only Jared Boll that did some fighting last night. Dalton Prout did some as well. He was really playing with an edge last night, and I had a chance to catch up with him after the game and talk to him about it.
It was a busy night for you out there in many ways here. Kind of a tough night for you. You and Jason Chimera, didn't look like it was much friendly conversation between the two of you.
We're going to agree to disagree there. And the heat of the moment, lots of things happen on the ice, and frustration sets in for sure. And I think it just came to a head there.
Were you surprised this game got as rough as it did, not just with you, but Jared Boll fighting Tom Wilson? And there was a lot of chippiness out there tonight.
Like I said before, I think it was self-provoked. I think we didn't have the start we wanted to, and the way that we want to be remembered as a team going on the stretch here is pride, integrity, and you show that in your actions, the way you play. Sometimes maybe not the execution, but the willingness to show an effort every night. And I think we didn't bring that for parts of the first period, so that was a little bit of frustration, a little bit of pushback in the beginning of the second. That led to some chippiness.
And this turns into the same old story here. You're chasing a team, a very good team, and you get close, but just couldn't catch up.
Yeah, one play. Their goalie made a huge save, but when it was 3-0, Bob stood tall and made a huge save for us to have even a chance in that game. But you know what? I think it's something we need to learn from. We shouldn't need to be provoked or our coach. It needs to be our 2-goal deficit. It needs to come from within the room, and we need to play better right from the start.
So that's Dalton Prout talking about what happened last night. Self-provoked. I like that because that's exactly what it was. It was self-provoked by the Blue Jackets last night. Just not getting it done. And they've got to get it done. There's no question about it. And they can't be coming from behind. And you can't play teams like that in this league. You just can't. It doesn't work. And especially teams like the Capitals that are driving to the playoffs, you just can't get away with that kind of stuff. Finally, Jack Johnson was asked pretty specifically about that point, about that falling behind in the slow starts or whatever you want to call it. And he's got an answer for you. It's a pretty honest answer, if you ask me. Here it is.
Kind of identity coming into the game, was that more what it was? Just you guys exerting your influence on the Capitals in the second?
Well, yeah, we don't like to lose. That's hockey's an emotional sport, and the guys that that is in their identity and what they specifically bring to the table. It was easy for them to go out there and do it emotionally because they're upset with where we are in the standings, where we were in the game, and multiple things.
Thanks, Jim. Yep.
Jack, it seemed like the physical play really got this team engaged, and you played better from that standpoint. Do you agree with that assessment?
I think that was part of it. I think that we also knew that if we kept going on the path we were on, it was going to be a long night, and you wouldn't be at this point if you didn't have a lot of pride and some form of an ego to not want to go out there and get embarrassed. So we went out there and tried to throw everything we could at him in the second and third and see if we couldn't tie it up. I know it's goals haven't been the easiest thing for us to come by this year, so when you start in the hole, it's an uphill battle all night, but we still fully believed we could get it into maybe overtime or shootout and have a chance to win the hockey game.
Well, and that takes you back to the old bugaboo of the start, the slow start, not being able to get started the way you wanted to.
Yeah, that's if we had an answer for that, this wouldn't happen, to be honest with you. It's a problem. Like I said, goals haven't been the easiest thing for us to come by, so when you start in the hole, it's an uphill battle.
Jack, another bugaboo that you guys have been facing since the All-Star break is the response goal. It happened again to you tonight. Is it getting to be a concern?
It's something we're aware of, but it's not something that we sit here and talk about all the time. That's stuff like that is stuff you've been hearing since you were young. Shift after a goal, big shift. And don't let the other team get back into it. I mean, that's something you've been hearing for years. That's not just new to the NHL. So we're aware of it. We try not to make it something that's really in the forefront of your head, because you don't want to be gripping your sticks or anything like that. You still want to just go out and play hockey. But everyone's aware of it.
You know, that makes sense, what he just said there at the end about that giving up a goal right away, and you try not to think of it. And I think when you initially hear it, and when I initially heard it last night when he said it, I was thinking, well, I mean, it has been a problem. Don't you want to admit that you talk about it and that it is kind of in the forefront? But he's right. I mean, that's one of those things that you've been hearing since you've been 8 years old. And sometimes when you do think about it, I think about it in your life. How many times do you think, oh, I can't do this, or I've got to make sure I don't mess this up, and then the first thing you do is mess it up? So I get it. I understand this answer. And talking about the slow starts, just saying, well, if we knew why it was happening, we wouldn't be doing it. And I understand that answer, and that's an honest answer, no question. But on the other hand, they've got to figure it out. They've got to figure it out. Because it's repetitive. It just keeps on happening. And you know, that's the problem. If it was once in a while, or it was sporadic, same thing as once in a while, I know. But if it was that would be one thing. But when it's, you know, really a pattern that you can see developing over and over and over and over, that's the frustrating part of it. So now that's 7 games in a row the Blue Jackets have gone without a win. In one of those games, they got a point. That was a shootout loss in New York against the Rangers, but nothing out of any of the other one of those games. And now they have to go into a back-to-back situation this weekend, playing at New Jersey on Friday and coming home to play against the Colorado Avalanche on Saturday. David Clarkson also left the game last night with an unspecified upper body injury. There was no report about him after the game last evening either. So nobody's immune, right? I mean, David Clarkson's been here for 3 games, and now he's out with an injury, or could be out with an injury. Didn't finish the game because of an injury last night. So nobody's immune. I mean, you get hurt on this team the moment you join the team, apparently. Justin Falk played last night. I thought he was fine in his first game as a Blue Jacket. Big guy, 6'5", before he puts on the skates. He's huge. He had a fight last night. Other than that, he was fine. There was nothing flashy about his game, nor do you expect there to be any flash to his game. He's a good, solid defender. And so I thought he was fine last night. David Savard gets another goal. He's got 10 on the year. You know, Jarmo Kekalainen cited David Savard when he talked about the trade of James Wisniewski, about the emergence of David Savard. He was the one guy that he picked out and said, he's gotten so good that we feel that, obviously they feel that he's the replacement for James Wisniewski when you're talking about the offense from the blue line. And even though we may not have seen it to a huge extent, when he played junior hockey, he was a top-scoring defenseman in the Quebec Major Junior League. So he knows how to score goals. And we saw it last night. Again, he's got 10 on the year. So he's done fine. He plays big minutes, plays the power play, plays penalty kill. He's all over the place out there. So good night for David Savard last night. Good night for Scott Hartnell. He had 2 goals in the game. And darn near got 3 late in the game. Darn near completed his hat trick. Close, but no cigar, unfortunately, for Scott Hartnell last night. So 5-3, Blue Jackets lose in New Jersey on Friday is the next game for them. So let's see what you have for me at Bobby Mack Sports on Twitter. You can use the hashtag CBJin30 in case you haven't sent anything as of yet. Joe says, I see it's an obvious tank going on now. It's either give up 2 to 3 goals in the first period or score a goal and give up a goal in 1 minute. And then Joe follows up. I respect your professionalism not to answer, but it sucks as a fan to see another season go by and a year of my life. I understand that, Joe. I totally understand it. I don't think this is an obvious tank, to be honest with you. I think the Buffalo Sabres, what they did at the trade deadline, what they've been doing leading up to it, well, they did make the trade with Winnipeg, and they got Evander Kane, but he can't play for the rest of the year. But I think that's an obvious tank. They traded both goaltenders. All right. I mean, they want to finish last. The Arizona Coyotes, they have made it so that they can finish in the top two, or bottom two in this case, if you will. So I think those are tank jobs. And I don't blame either one of those teams. I really don't. That sounds bad, but again, when you have guys that are supposed to be generational players like Connor McDavid and Jack Eichel, which are going to be the first two guys taken, what do you expect teams to do? I mean, if you have a guy that can make you that much better right now, at 18 years old, can make you really good, not really good, but make a marked improvement in your club, and then you build around him. If you're the Buffalo Sabres, you have Evander Kane now. You can put Connor McDavid at center and have Evander Kane on a wing. That's a pretty good top line. That's a top line right there. So I understand these teams doing what they're doing. I really do. And I know they put a lottery in place so teams couldn't purposely lose and be guaranteed that number one draft pick. I understand all of that. But how do you're trying to build a good team, and it's a business here too. All right? You sell tickets by winning. You sell advertising by winning. You make your money by winning. So you're trying to win. And sometimes, in some rare cases, and I believe this is a rare case, sometimes you make your money by losing. It's not the money you're going to make now. It's money you're going to make down the line by winning. So I get it. I understand. If you're the Arizona Coyotes, you're already behind the eight ball. I mean, you're already in a market where you have to win if you want to draw. You know, the arena's so far out of Phoenix, it's such a pain to get there. You're already battling that to get people to drive out there. So you got to win. And if that means losing to win, what are you going to do? It's a decision you have to make. I don't think the Blue Jackets, this is not an obvious tank job to me. I mean, is their lineup strong right now? No. But has it been strong all year? Not really. It hasn't been consistent. And I understand the frustration of seeing another year go by without the playoffs. But again, this year to me is a blip on the radar screen because it shouldn't have been this way. Just remember, and these games don't mean anything, and I was saying that at the time, and it's really proven now. But they were 7-1 in 8 preseason games. Everybody was excited. As well you should have been. As well I was. No doubt. But then the injuries started. I don't mean any offense to these players, but if Brian Gibbons misses 3 months, or Jack Skilly misses 3 months, or Corey Trupp or Jared Boll misses 3 months, you get through it. Brandon Dubinsky misses 3 months. That's hard. Mark Letestu misses 3 months. That's hard. When Artem Anisimov misses 3 months, that's hard. When Boone Jenner misses 3 months, that's hard. That's tough to deal with, especially for a franchise like this, who's relying heavily upon those people. And when they're not there, you're putting in the Alex Wenbergs and the Marco Danos, who, oh yes, are playing very well right now. But what was the old Saturday Night Live cast? Not ready for primetime players? They haven't been most of the year. Young guys coming from Europe, getting adjusted to the league. Not guys that have been in the American Hockey League waiting for 2 years just for an opening, for a chance, playing the same system in the minors. So it's a lot different. A lot different. But again, sometimes you take a step back to take 2 steps forward. And I cite for you again the New York Islanders and what happened to them last year. And they have found a way. Well, not found a way. They've done a great job. They got, 2 defensemen right before the start of the year, Johnny Boychuk and Nick Leddy. And they've used that well. They got Yaroslav Halak. They've used that well. The Blue Jackets already have the goaltending. They've got, when everybody's healthy, I mean, come on. When everybody's healthy, what do you have as your forwards? You have Nick Foligno, Ryan Johansson, Cam Atkinson, Scott Hartnell, Brandon Dubinsky, Matt Calvert. You've got Boone Jenner. I said when they're all healthy. When they're all healthy, Boone Jenner is in there as part of the mix. Matt Calvert, who's out with an injury again right now. Mark Letestu, Alex Wenberg, Marco Dano, Jared Boll, Corey Tropp. There's 13 right there. That's when they're all healthy. And that's 13, which means one doesn't play. And I didn't even count Jeremy Morin on that. Jack Skilly, I didn't count him on that. You see? So it's almost a write-off this year, what happened. It was just too much to overcome. But as we've talked about for the last couple of games, the only good thing about a season like this is it exposes all your warts. Because the things that you were doing wrong, or the people that maybe you were winning with and you shouldn't have been winning with, or whatever, it all got glossed over before because you were winning. And you don't rock the boat when you're winning. You just leave everything the way it is, and you turn a blind eye to it, right? But then when you're losing, it all gets exposed. And now you know what you really have and what you really have to do. So that's where you have to go with this season. That's what you have to take out of a season like this. Mark says, with losses piling up in playoffs, long shot, and seeing teammates injured all year, how worn down is this team? I think they are. That's a fair point. I think they are pretty worn down. I mean, if you're one of the guys that's been healthy for the majority of the year, if you're a Nick Foligno who's missed 2 games, if you're a Ryan Johansson who's been there, a David Savard, a Jack Johnson, the guys that have been able to play in all these games, yeah, I'm sure it does wear on you. Absolutely wears on you, no doubt. Because even in the small instances you feel you have something going, somebody else gets hurt, and then you don't. So yes, I think mentally that does wear you down. That's a very good point, Mark. I think it does wear you down. Bo Scorvat says, what team in the draft lottery is the best fit for Connor McDavid? Meaning, where would he develop best? Well, if he is the player they say that he is, Bo, he'll develop anywhere you put him. Doesn't matter. Now, if you put him with a team, let's say, perchance, the Blue Jackets were to win the lottery. Could you imagine that, by the way? Could you imagine the Blue Jackets winning the NHL draft lottery? Because if you took a Connor McDavid and put him into the group I just mentioned a moment ago, how do you think that would work? Pretty well. Pretty well. And unless you finish 1 or 2, you're not guaranteed to get one of those guys. Because by rule, if somebody wins the lottery, they go into the 1 spot, and the number 1 goes to number 2, the 2 gets bumped to 3. So you've got to be in 1 or 2 at the end of the year. And that's what the Sabres and Coyotes are almost desperately trying to do. Guarantee themselves one of those guys. But Connor McDavid, if he is the real deal, if he's the next Sidney Crosby, he'll develop wherever you put him. But if he gets with a team that already has a good base, like I said, if you put him in Buffalo and you play him with Evander Kane, they'll be good. But what do they have beyond that in Buffalo? That's because they are rebuilding. That'll be the question. If you put him in Arizona, what do you have there? And I mean, I know they have some good young prospects coming and all that stuff. Don't get me wrong, but do you take off right now? I'm trying to think back to when Sidney Crosby came into the league, and he came in Pittsburgh. Eddie Olczyk was the coach. That didn't work out. Eddie was gone. They, and Sid skated with Mario Lemieux. Mario came out of retirement there for a while, and they skated together and all that jazz. I mean, they weren't great right off the bat because they were down to almost nothing. They were taking those first overall or second overall picks for a couple of years in a row. But if a Connor McDavid were to come into this lineup, instant change, in my opinion. If he is what they say he is, and everything I read, that's what he is. What else do we have here? Shane wants to know, you're awarded an expansion NHL team, the Bobby Big Macs, and you can choose one Blue Jackets player to build around. Who would it be? This is easy, Shane, hands down. I mean, if this was Family Feud, I'd hit the buzzer like that. Sergei Bobrovsky. That's where it all starts. Right in the net. So if you're asking me to pick a Blue Jackets player, that's who I would pick. Ryan Johansson's high on the list. Ryan Johansson is very good. Is he great right now? No. Is he going to be great? I hope so. But there's some variables there for me if I'm starting a team. I already know this goaltender is going to be great. I already know I'm going to be struggling defensively and scoring goals. So I want a guy that can keep the puck out of the net as much as possible. I'm taking that guy. If you're asking me to take a Blue Jackets player, that's who it is. Courtney Matthews brings up a situation here. Who would the Blue Jackets put in net if both Sergei Bobrovsky and Curtis McElhinney were to get injured? All right, here's the basis of Courtney's question. Last night, the Florida Panthers had both goaltenders get injured. Roberto Luongo left the game with an injury. Al Montoya went in, got injured, had to keep playing through the injury. And then Luongo was in street clothes, went back in and dressed, and went back into the game. Now, there's a subplot to that. First, let me answer Courtney's question. And I don't know. All I can tell you is that there are a couple of possibilities. Now, Florida last night was going to put in their goaltending coach, Rob Tallis. I don't know if Ian Clark, the Blue Jackets goaltending coach, would go into a game or not. But there is another guy, Mike Battaglia, who was a college goalie, who is a video scout in the office, and has gone in and handled practices before when one of the goaltenders couldn't practice. So my guess is it would be Mike that would go in and take over. But I saw Aaron Portzline tweeted earlier when somebody asked him, said Todd Richards will never say because he's too superstitious. He doesn't want to think about that or doesn't want that situation to ever occur. I get it. And my guess would be Mike Battaglia would do it over Ian Clark. But I could be wrong. Maybe Clarkie would want to get in there. Would probably depend on the score and what's going on in the game. I'm kidding. But here's the subplot to this whole situation last night, and I don't get this. George Richards, who is a Florida Panthers beat writer, he tweeted this just a little bit ago. The word is that the Panthers goalie coach Rob Tallis was ready to replace Al Montoya initially, but the referees wouldn't let him in. They wouldn't let him in the game. Can you believe that? The referee said it had to be an active player. That was wrong. The NHL later corrected that. This is what I don't understand. I don't get this. I don't understand. How can you not know what the rule is when you're officiating the game? How can they say, listen, I know both your guys are injured, and Montoya apparently couldn't even move correctly. He gave up what turned out to be the game-winning goal. The Toronto Maple Leafs win the game. They had lost 16 straight on the road. They win that game last night because of an injured goaltender. How can you not know what the rule is? You got one guy's in street clothes. You got another guy that can barely move that's in the net. They've got a guy dressed that they're ready to put in, and you say, no, it's got to be an active player. You got to know the rules. There's got to be more communication, doesn't there? And if you don't know, go over and call the war room and say, hey, ask somebody. If it stops the game, who cares? Figure it out. Right then. Not 10 minutes from then, or 30 minutes from then, or after the game. Figure it out. If you don't know the rule, figure it out. Go ask somebody. I don't understand that. And I really don't understand that. And I obviously have a very strong opinion of it. Like, how could you not know that? Would I know it? No, I would probably have to look it up. But I'm not officiating the game. I'm not the referee. I'm not the guy that's supposed to know. I don't get that. I don't understand that. How does that happen? How in the heck does that happen? We're going to put this guy in. Nope, you can't. It's got to be an active player. No, it doesn't. That's how infrequently it happens because nobody knew what to do. Okay? And I understand that. I understand as a coach on the bench, you want to make a switch, and then the guy's telling you can't do that, and maybe you don't know. When's it ever happened to you? Maybe you don't know. I get that. But I don't get the guys that are officiating the game not knowing the rules. I don't get that. If that's the way it happened, I don't get it. If that's the way it happened, I think it's inexcusable. Doesn't happen a lot. But there are rules for those situations. If you don't know what it is, timeout. Let's go find out. I don't get it. I don't get that at all. Drives me nuts. I think that's obvious. Know the rules. If you're officiating the game, know the rules. And if you don't know the rules, go over to that penalty box, get on that headset. You're in constant contact with Toronto during the entire game. Their job is to review goals to see if they're good or not. However, they would be able to look up that rule or very quickly call somebody to get that answer. The answer was available. That's my whole point. The answer was available. And it took a long time to get it. I don't understand. Now, the Florida Panthers have called up 2 goalies today. Dan Ellis from the American Hockey League, and he's played in the NHL. So he's an experienced goaltender, but he's no Roberto Luongo. He's no Al Montoya, or he wouldn't have been in the AHL. Here's a team battling for a playoff spot. They're a couple of points back. This could be awful for them. They also called up their goaltender from the ECHL. So they've essentially got a AA and AAA goaltender right now. A couple points out of the playoffs, trying like heck to get in. That's a tough spot. Tough spot. Now, the American Hockey League team was in Charlotte. So they weren't that far away. Easy flight. And I saw a tweet this morning where the San Antonio radio guy is in net for the morning skate. And I thought I had a lot of job responsibilities. Thank goodness I don't have that one. Thank goodness I don't have that one. That's all I can tell you on that. What else is going on today? The league announced that ESPN gets the broadcast rights to the 2016 World Cup of Hockey. ESPN did it the last time they televised last time that there was a World Cup of Hockey played many moons ago. But they get the rights. Gary Bettman said that NBC was in on the discussions, but they had some scheduling conflicts. What's the matter with me? They had scheduling conflicts on NBC Sportsnet, so it was best to go with ESPN. Says there's no hard feelings between NBC and the NHL. Remember, NBC has an exclusive 10-year deal with the National Hockey League. And then he went on to say, well, other sports are on multiple channels and platforms. Yeah. That's what this league has to get back to at some point. At some point. And maybe this is step one in that direction. So it goes from September 17th to October 3rd, I believe. World Cup of Hockey in Toronto. And ESPN will be doing the coverage in the United States. You know who's going to do it in Canada? Who cares? We're not in Canada. We being me. So who cares? Rogers Sportsnet. if you really want the answer. If you can't, take a nap this afternoon without the answer. There it is. So there you go. Oh, goodness. Well, I think that's going to round it out here for a Wednesday. Blue Jackets not playing again until Friday. Again, that game is going to be in New Jersey on Friday against the Devils. The Devils team that shut out the Blue Jackets 2-0 last Saturday at Nationwide Arena. So they get a chance to go back at them. Final trip into Newark, New Jersey. I have 2 words for that. Thank goodness. We'll do this show again tomorrow. The Blue Jackets return to practice tomorrow. And we can talk about whatever you want to talk about tomorrow. So I'll give you 23 and a half hours to think about it and get back.